the interpreter.
About
Yes.
the parents' role. The rationale, the basic tenets of this project is child-centeredness. We are focusing on children because in the past only adults were considered, or if children were involved, they were involved as objects of study that adults could talk about. Okay, so we wanted the children to be the subjects of our research work, not the objects of our research work as it was in the past. And parents belong to the world of adults. Also, as far as ITER is concerned, the answer is yes. We mainly focused on unaccompanied children, but this is not the reason why parents were not involved. Parents were not involved also because usually in criminal proceedings, at least in Italy, children are interviewed with the parents behind the mirror. And also in the child-friendly justice, at least as far as I know, it is true that children may ask for the parents to be present, but it is also true that if children believe that parents have a different opinion from their own opinion, they can ask not to be accompanied or represented by their parents. So parents were not involved because we really wanted to focus on children.
Thank you, Amalia. I think Stefan can also add from his viewpoint from law something to that question, the role of the parents.
Yes, I think I can. Of course. Let me start my video too, so you can see me. Oh, I should be a bit more patient. Yes, there we are. So basically, as I tried to pinpoint, is that from a children's rights perspective, or from an international children's rights perspective, children become beings with agency that can decide for themselves. And if we look at, for example, so both in the asylum and in the criminal sphere, if you look at Directive 2016/800 on procedural safeguards for children who are suspects or accused in criminal proceedings, Article 5 of that directive talks about the right of the child to have the holder of parental responsibility informed. So I think it captures that idea that the child is a right, and the child can talk with a legal representative about whether or not he or she wants to have the parent involved. And of course, it depends on an individual level, on the maturity, on the understanding of the process. And sometimes it goes as far as the fact that the parent isn't considered as a person to be there for the child because there's a conflict of interest at times. So what then? It's difficult to of course talk about every minor detail. And from the asylum point of view, there's also lots of legal academic work that says that children should have the right to launch an application for themselves in their own interest, separate from their parents. So, of course, I mean, there's too much to talk about because every national system, again, has different nuances.
Okay.
If I may add something.
Yeah, Amalia?
That on the other hand, it is a wrong practice to interview the child, for instance, refugee children, without their parents. I mean, asking them to be on their own when they are being interviewed to decide whether or not they should be granted the status of refugee. I mean, this is not illegal because it's not stated anywhere that the parents have to be there, but in principle, you should not impose to the child that he or she is interviewed for the refugee during a refugee hearing on their own. This is wrong too.
Okay, Thank you. There is a question linked to that from the same person, from Xenia. So last time, and then we go to the next question for Stefan. What's the legal situation? Legally, the parents are representatives of their children, right? Can parents refuse that their child be questioned, for example? I guess we partially already received the answer. Stefan, can you answer that one? Because it's now added. What's the legal
Yeah,
situation?
I mean, as I said, it's very difficult, and of course, the person has the right to remain silent. The lawyer in question, or the lawyer that represents the child, will inform him or her of her rights, and deciding not to cooperate, of course, is a decision that you can make. But what we focus on really is understanding and being understood. And as Amalia rightfully said, we focused on children because we had the idea that they are a bit invisible. They are paternalized very often, even though they have rights. They have agency. They should have agency. But you're right in the sense that parents have a big role, and also legally speaking, they have parental responsibility, and so they are involved in the story. But as I said, difficult to dig into the details of,
yes,
that question.
And I guess if parents are involved in the case, then it becomes completely, if there is conflict of interest, as you said, then it's completely complex and very, very difficult.
Yes, and then there's also the chance, or the child then has the right to appoint someone else, an appropriate adult, to assist him or her and to support where needed. So again, it's lots of nuances, lots of thought processes. But for us, we take the perspective of the children, right? And so we say again that children are beings with agency and with rights, and they also get to make decisions or to formulate a viewpoint. And that's the starting point for us.
Okay, yeah. That's clear. Okay, thank you very much, Stefan, and everybody else. I don't know if
Heidi, sorry.
Yes.
May I ask to Bernadette, who asks whether there is
yes. That's what I was going to do. Is there any specific? So there is a question from Bernadette Foldvari. Is there any specific regulation or rather recommendation for in-person interpretation? So on site, I suppose, as a requirement or a highly recommended way of interaction in case of child victims during interviews. As I know, this is not always the case. The interpreter is sometimes connected, for example, via phone. So I guess this is a question for you, Amalia, as an interpreter, and anybody else who wants to comment. But first, I give the floor to you.
Okay. If it were for me, I would let the child choose. You've clearly understood that I'm totally siding with children by now. Anyway, we know that knowing a bad interpreter or no interpreter, well, it's better to have a telephone interpreter or a video link interpreter than no interpreter or an unprofessional interpreter, number one. So yes, some authors say it should be the last resort. There is a suggestion to use remote interpreting. I think it's in Directive 2012-64. In case it's difficult to find an interpreter of a language of lesser diffusion. And also, I once listened to a presentation by some Norwegian colleagues, and Norway has a particular geographical sort of morphology, and they were talking about refugee children, and they could be located very far away from where the actual venue of the interview is. So rather than making them travel one day and take them away from the environment they know and so on, they prefer to use a video link or a telephone interpreter for the interview, and the child can still sit in a room that he is familiar with a person he's familiar with the social worker and so on. And so why not? I mean, if it's something that helps the child, if it's in the best interest of the child, provided that the technical equipment works, why not? I mean, I'm not in principle against telephone or video link interpreting. Consider also that the child is in a room with 2 or 3 adults, unknown adults. So maybe if a third adult is somewhere else, that's not too bad for the child.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a clear viewpoint. I would like to, I'm looking at the question, so I hope the answer was satisfying for Bernadette. Then we have some reactions from participants, and I'd like to read them on the question about the legal situation and of the parents, if the parents are legally representatives of their children, if they should be present, etc. Simon Smith is saying that it's only in exceptional circumstances that a parent should be present during an interview with a child, witness, or victim. He's talking about England and Wales, and he is sending us an interesting link to the guidance in achieving best evidence. We know this document. It can be highly damaging to the investigative process having a parent present. They are usually in a room next to the interview suite. And then Tesfa Jesus Sirach answers the comments that as far as she knows, in Belgium, the child is always accompanied by the parent or by his legal foster, voogd, everywhere at school, immigration, during his interview, or even at the lawyer's office in Belgium and the Netherlands. Yes, I can post the link to the document here. That's what Ksenia Yakovleva asks. Yes, I will do that. I think I will put on my video again, so that's a little bit nicer to talk, if it works. Yes. I think I will share the link, and as far as I hope I didn't overlook anybody, but as far as I know, these were the discussion items for this afternoon. And since we are running a little bit out of time and everybody definitely, and especially the interpreters, need a break, we can now have a break until 4:30, so we have about 15 minutes of break. So please stay in the room. You can shut off your microphones and your videos and then just come back after 15 minutes. Thank you very much.